So today I'm just getting started on my latest project, which is I'm building a lot of Grey Knights from Games Workshop, and mostly just doing assembly today, so not much interesting to talk about. But if you've watched my other videos, specifically, and really not many of you have, but I mentioned in the Vallejo delivery video that I kind of had a little epiphany regarding dry brushes. Now, as some of you may know, the dry brush is one of those techniques that you learn pretty early on, because it's very easy to get a good result with it, or at least to get a good result for dry brushing. When you go from just painting the basics, which is to say just blocking out color, and then you want to, first time you try out dry brushing and you get that highlight and you're really excited because now your painting is automatically sort of gone one step forward. But as you learn other techniques and you learn washes and you learn other highlighting and blending and other things, you kind of decide that while dry brushing is very easy to do, it also has its limitations, and frankly it's not terribly subtle. The only times I really use it these days is doing metallics, and I'm still sort of a die-hard metallic painter. While I appreciate the non-metallic metal look for those that do it, personally, when I'm painting things, I'm going for a little bit more of a realistic approach. I'm kind of old school in that way, I guess. Which, I don't know, is that old school? But anyway, so I don't do dry brushing that often, and that's the point. Now, when I was working on Vallejo, specifically when I was working on his wings, I had, and if you can take a look at the video, and you can go to the Flickr page as well to see the photograph. I had painted a base coat on his wings. I'd actually washed his wings, which normally I wouldn't wash something that's that broad and flat an area, but I did, knowing that I was going to go back over it with another color with the airbrush. But when that was done, I really wanted to pick out the highlights of the details on that wing, and unfortunately, I really didn't have hours and hours to spend actually picking up that detail, and I don't have anything I can use as a good example here, but the fact of the matter is there was just too much detail, not enough time, and I started looking at it thinking, well, this wouldn't be a bad place to do a dry brush, except for the fact that, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, the worst results I've ever gotten with dry brushing is when I try to dry brush very light colors, or white, for example. And this was going to be a really, really light color. It was going to be P3 Frostbite, which is very similar to Ghost Gray from Games Workshop, which is a slightly blue-white. But then I kind of had an epiphany, and that was this, that the reason my dry brushes with those colors don't look good is because they tend to get chalky. So instead of getting, a nice smooth color picking up over the raised surfaces that you want, well, the pigment will sort of almost, for lack of a better word, it'll pixelate, but it'll, and then it ends up looking chalky. You get these little dots of color where you really want a smooth color, which normally you would have to go in with your brush to actually smooth that out. But I had this thought, and that was, what if the dry brush paint wasn't actually dry, or wasn't completely dry? And really, when you're doing a dry brush, there is sort of a trade-off that you want to make, because in order to do it right, you're really just embedding pigment onto the surface. All of the paint medium is really what's dry, and you're hoping to embed that pigment straight onto the base color surface. And I thought, well, you can't, if you have a wet brush, when you do it, you're just going to get streaks. You're going to get brush strokes, you're going to get streaks, and it's going to go into the crevices, and so you're going to lose the whole effect. But I've been playing around with Vallejo's retardant, or retardante, also called slow dry, and this is Vallejo model color 597, at least in this bottle, and this is a fairly old bottle. And when I got it, I mean, it said slow dry, so I figured, I kind of knew what it was. It's a retarder, and retarders, you add it to your paint in order to slow the drying process, thus slow dry. But normally you probably only use that for blending, or if you have a lot of a color on your palette that you're going to be using on a lot of models and you don't want it to dry out, and that's how I've normally used it. But in this case I thought, well, what if I had very little paint on the brush, but that paint really wasn't dry? And so I decided to experiment with that. I added, I want to say, like a 1-to-3 mix of paint to retarder, probably, maybe not even that, maybe 1-to-4, 1-to-5. A lot of this stuff I do on the fly, so it's not like I'm writing down recipes. And I mixed that up, and I went over the surface like I would a dry brush, very lightly, and it worked. And so that was really, it was a cool feeling to sort of have this idea of how I might be able to get away with a dry brush in the situation, and then have it work. And if you really want to see what the results look like, take a look at the Drybrushing progress video, or go to my Flickr account and look at the final. You can actually, if you use the menu, you can make that the Flickr picture huge and really get to see what some of that detail on the wing looks like. And I was really excited about that. But Vallejo Slow Dry 597, assuming that's still the number for it. Play with it and experiment with it. Again, it's just there to keep your paint from drying out too quickly, and if you add too much, it really never dries, so don't add too much. But yeah, when I got this, there were no instructions. There's no instructions on the bottle, or if there are, they're in, it just says, a few drops mixed with colors slows drying time. That's it. That's the only instructions you get. I think you can go about 50-50, almost. I think about, when you get to that level, you're getting to the point where your paint's never going to dry. So below that, I guess. And that's it for now. I will have more video later. I actually got a new camera. You might notice a quality difference, assuming you've ever seen one of my videos before. And this is just a funny story, but I just took delivery for this camera 20 minutes ago. It's a flip video camera, not one of their high-end ones. Today is the day that Cisco announced they were no longer going to be in the flip video business, so that was kind of funny. So that's it for now. I will probably do another video tomorrow and show you some actual progress on the Gray Knights. There's not much to show at this point. It's all assembly, and frankly I find assembly to be boring, both in watching other people do it and doing it myself, so I will save you from that boredom. That's it for now, and I will talk to you later.